You put all this time and effort and energy into a cocktail menu, and then you just waste it.
Yeah.
And it's your cost isn't under control. Your customers aren't getting a good experience. Like, you'd be better off not doing it at that point if you cannot train on that menu. Hello and welcome to Party of Six. This week we are that bad six top that made a reservation. 3 people showed up. Joining us today is myself, Chris Schneider, the bar business coach and host of the Bar Business Podcast, Dave Nitzel of Dave and Dave Consulting and Barmetrics, and Cliff Kreider of Truck and Tap and Stinger Compliance. Today, we honestly, because there were only 3 of us, didn't quite follow the rules that we normally do. So we're just going to drop in on a meandering conversation that Dave, Cliff, and I all had about menus. And we get into inventory details. We get into how to pick what goes on your menu. And hopefully, by listening to today's conversation, you can figure out some things that you want to do on your next menu. Before we get into today's episode, I have a few questions for you. Is your staff catching every fake ID? Is your guest experiencing your vision of service? Are your bartenders pouring properly? If you can't answer these questions, check out Stinger Compliance so you don't have to guess. They specialize in ID verification, secret shops that protect your reputation, your community, and your profits. So secure your business with the pros. Schedule your first shop today at stingercompliance.com. Stinger Compliance. Inspect what you expect. Also, as a note, if you haven't checked it out yet, go over to quickspec.com. That's QUIXSPEC.com. And you can see my new tech project that I've been working on, where we take the data from your POS system and your QuickBooks and put it into an actionable dashboard that you can actually use to make data-driven decisions about your business. One of the cool things we also do is give you a 28-day forecast. That way you can understand where you are by seeing where you've been and then make the right decisions based on what you expect to happen tomorrow, next week, and the weeks after. With that, guys, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode.
Well, I like comparing bars to restaurants in the sense with menus, because when we started, we didn't have a cocktail menu. We just threw alcohol on the back wall and took drink orders. Now we had the beer menu always rotating, and that was the big thing 10 years ago. And I would tell my partner, I said, you don't go to a restaurant and look at all the food on the wall and say, oh, I can see you can make beef bourguignon there. I'll take beef bourguignon. You don't do that, so you've got to guide, your clientele into what they're going to drink. And you're probably, since you're making the book, you probably know that then therefore you're guiding your clientele into the specific product, whatever it is that brings you the deal that you made with the distributor or the local cocktail that people enjoy. You might be in a certain market where Tito's is the vodka, but if you go down the road to another bar, they may not even have Tito's. So do you even put vodka soda down on a menu? Do you? Vodka soda's not on our menu, but we're selling more vodka soda anyway. So how important is it?
I have 3 stories to contribute, and I'll try to pick my spots, and I won't tell all 3 at the same time. What should the first one be? The first one would be, all right, so the first one would be the lesson I learned. So one of our clients on the inventory side of our business is Gary Crunkleton. He has incredible places in North Carolina, really stunning cocktail bars. One of them does some of the best food you'll ever have. Absolutely one of my favorite places to go on earth. If you're in Charlotte, or in the Charlotte area, make a trip to the Crunkleton. It's completely worth it. And like Gary does, I don't think they even have vodka. They just refuse. They find vodka offensive, right? So, which is interesting because so many people's default is vodka because they don't have I'm not expert, but it seems to me like a lot of people who don't necessarily have a taste for the flavor of alcohol default to vodka because it's sort of this flavorless spirit, and then it tastes like whatever else you put in there, right? Some crude version of that. So they don't carry vodka, which I think is awesome. And but they'll make a drink, so you can go in there. How you don't have vodka, and they will have a conversation with you about their different drinks and spirits, and give me a chance. And I think they may hide vodka in case they can't win the day. All right, we'll make it. You didn't like that. You didn't like that. You didn't like that. We'll make you a vodka drink, right? But Gary's philosophy was don't put more than 8 drinks, 8 signature cocktails on the menu. That should cover it. And the idea is he wants complete and total mastery of those 8 cocktails, both from a guest perspective and from a productivity perspective behind the bar. They need to crank. Like the place, it's hard to run. It seems a little incongruent to say I run a highly productive cocktail bar. Like those things don't quite go together. And Gary is very deliberate about the stations. Everything is 1 or 2 steps away at the most. We make these 8 cocktails. Now they can riff. He sells historic spirits too. So this is a little bleed into the second lesson, and I'll pause. But he got laws changed in North Carolina so he could sell antique historic spirits. So you could go there and get a whiskey from 1924 in the original bottle and all that stuff. Now you're going to pay for it. But part 2, I think, because it just kind of runs into it. So the second thought is cocktail bars and places that decorate with alcohol and just fill the walls with alcohol. That can also be really intimidating for a guest who most people don't know. Most people don't know the difference between a small batch of single barrel and then your base spirit. They don't even know that. And people don't go out to say, hey, I want to be intimidated. I want to be treated elitist, as if I want to be comfortable. So you have to, if you're going to get really elaborate with your bar, we call it decision paralysis. You start to default into basic stuff when you're uncomfortable. Just give me something I know I'm freaking out here, and you're creating exactly the wrong experience. So the other thing Gary does exceedingly well is his bartenders are unimaginably knowledgeable, and they can talk to you about the historic spirits behind the bar. They can tell you about everything that's on the wall. And all of a sudden, you can create an experience that initially at Gary's place, it is a cool vibe, but you can feel a little, wait a minute, you don't serve vodka? What, am I stupid? Is it me? Like, what is it? And then you bring people in and then you start teaching them about all this stuff. And suddenly you're generating these really cool conversations, educational in nature, but really more interesting, that you share with everyone, like I'm doing with you guys right now. I'm telling you about Gary's place because the experiences are so awesome. And I'll tell you, Cliff, final point, when I go in there and I look at the menu, like you said too, I don't know what I don't know what the shit is. So they're like, Dave, what do you like? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm like kind of on the sweet side of things. Just make me whatever it is. Like, it's one of the places I go in and I just say, I'll take whatever, guys. Like, here, give me your best shot. And it always hits. Like, it's just phenomenal. So I look at the menu from you would think on the inventory, I look at it from, I guess, a bunch of angles. One, the customer side, also inventory and inventory carrying costs. Chris, like, what does this stuff cost me to have sit here and decorate with alcohol is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's a little bit, Cliff, to your point, maybe in a roundabout way.
So something I'd throw out there, one of the things you said, Cliff, is do you put a vodka soda on the menu? And my general rule of thumb when it comes to things like that is if I think your average barfly who drinks the same thing every week or every day is going to sit down and be able to order it, it probably doesn't need to be on a menu.
Right.
Right. So even in my mind, that can get to things like old fashions, Manhattans, Cosmo, even any more like espresso martinis.
Jack and Coke.
Yeah. Any blank and blank
Yeah.
pretty much is in that category.
Right.
But now the exception I make to that is say you were doing a old fashioned with a little bit of a twist to it. Okay, now it should go on a menu, right? But if it's just a standard old fashioned, if somebody wants it, they're going to order it.
Yep. Your household fashion. Right.
Yeah. And so just it's kind of a feel. And then it also, I think, depends on how fancy you are, right? Because if you are the place Dave was just describing, you can kind of get away with murder, right? Because people are going there, they have this expectation, which is way different than I'm walking down the street. Oh, that bar looks cool. I want to sit down and grab a drink real quick before I go to the store or, whatever. And so there's some level of that. And I kind of equate it to like on the food side, like fine dining. And I remember back in college, I went to school for hospitality. It was great. So we could get 3 credit hours to go to Europe and drink and eat food all spring break. And so I did that a couple times. And we went to this place in Belgium, Michelin star restaurant, and the whole thing was you sat down and you got a list of menu items and not even menu items, ingredients. And the only question on the form was, what do you not eat?
Yeah.
And you filled it out. And there were like 10 of us at this table. We send all these forms back. Not all 10 of us had the same food. Like some courses we were mostly the same, some courses we weren't. Killer dining experience, trust the chef, all that sort of thing. That's going to work there, but obviously you can't do that at Denny's, right? So to me, bars are kind of the same. If
Yeah.
you're in that high echelon, you can get away with being a little weird, being a little different.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But
yeah,
if you're run of the mill, you kind of have to play the average game that everybody else is playing.
right. Yep,
Horses for
I agree.
courses. You know, you go to the corner pub and it's Dave's Bloody Mary. It's my riff on a Bloody Mary. Look, we all know what's in it, right? I put a little of this sauce and a little of that sauce and a little rank rank in there, and that can hit the menu at the corner pub and be completely normal. Sorry, Cliff, you were going to say something.
No, no, no. I'm hearing you loud and clear. Yeah. So, at what point, my question to you is, at what point do you have, five different margaritas on the menu versus one margarita? If you have five different tequilas and there's a strawberry margarita, peach margarita. I mean, you go to some of these Mexican restaurants and there's, 10 margaritas. Or does someone walk up to my bar and say, can you make me a peach margarita? Yeah, we got some peach, squirt juice here. We'll shake it up and done. So do you prescribe to kind of Dave's Crunkleton bar where there's basically 8 craft cocktails on the menu? Or you look at Cure in New Orleans. I was voyeuring his menu and I'm like, my God, you know, this is incredible. I'd love to drink there, but I would certainly not want to manage a bar like that.
Well, look, all those like Cure's one of the best bars in the world, right? And so they're doing it one way. The Crunkleton's one of the best bars in the world. They're doing it a slightly different way. Look, and you can't discount too. There's the dive bars and Chris, the things that you sort of ran. Look, those are some of the best places in the world too. They just don't make lists. So
Yep.
part of it goes back to there's the some of it goes back to the guest. What do people expect from your venue? The corner pub, I don't expect to have this. I don't expect to be dazzled by their cocktail menu. If they can pull off a reasonably good old fashioned, I'm kind of cool. You can go to the local pub
Mhm.
and they're shaking the old fashioned, for you. It's like, okay, well, this is good. But hey, whatever, man. It's whiskey at the end of the day. I'm going to survive all that. So part of it's absolutely, what have you put out into the world in terms of what to expect from this place? I think less is more. No matter what, do keep that as tight as you can, is my experience, because most people aren't coming in saying, boy, I hope I just have a massive number of options I don't understand. Like, that is not a default position for any cast. Another quick story. So we had a client we were starting up and they were doing this really dope cigar bar downtown scene up in a high rise kind of thing, really cool rooftop. And we were working with them and they introduced a 50 cocktail item menu. And I'm flipping through it. It's like Cheesecake Factory of cocktails. It's insane. And I said, guys, let me just ask a few basic questions. Like, how many of this one are you going to make in a week? And it was some completely, who knows, right? And they're like, I don't know, like maybe two or three. It's like, so how many of these fall into the two or three category? And the answer was most of them. And I was like, look, from a productivity perspective, from a customer confusion, you got to dump almost all these and just launch, basically from Gary, launch your top 10 at the most. And they did, wildly successful. So I think that's smart. It's going to sound crazy, but do as little as you can get away with, because you've got a wall of options that creates sort of an infinity level. I want an old fashioned, but I want Four Roses single barrel. Can you do that? Yes, I can. Hey, I just want this. I just want that. And some of these places, bartenders just will go crazy trying to make all these different riffs. But for the most part, if you have an 8-bit menu, an 8-piece menu, and you price it right and cost it right, which also gets lost in sort of the fog of war when it comes to, I'm going to have this massive cocktail menu, pricing that right, having all the extra ingredients you have to carry, especially if things aren't moving. We say inventory at rest is inventory at risk. We don't like that. And we don't like our investments wrapped up in products. I'd rather it be in the bank. So like like I said, sorry, there's a bunch of conversations you can have: menu, inventory, offer. Like, it's a really big rolling conversation.
Well, and that's the part that people miss, right? Because one of the things that I've seen, I don't know how many times, not only do you have this cocktail menu that's too long that has all this different stuff on it, items that one ingredient only goes in that item, And so now, to your point, Dave, I got $30 sitting on the shelf that I'm gonna pour out of once every other week. And then once this cocktail menu is gone, I'm never gonna pour that bottle again. Or what's even worse, and the thing that I think kills people is the garnishes, right? They'll be like, "Oh, I have this cool cocktail that we're gonna garnish with a pineapple." Well, now you're buying pineapples, you're using 3 little slices, and you're throwing the rest of the pineapple away. And you're just burning money with the way food cost is now. And so my, go-to is always shorter, and if what I tend to tell people, whether it's food or liquor, is if you want, 100 items on your menu in a year, change it 4 times. If you want 400 items, change it 12 times. Like, I'd rather do a seasonal menu where you're switching it up and limiting exposure to inventory, inflation, financial risk, all of that. Your customers still get variety, it's more efficient for your kitchen, it's easier to train your servers. Because if you get into, like, a cheesecake level menu, I'm not sure how cheesecake has a single person that works for them that knows all the items in their menu.
Yeah. And, I was just counting the items on our menu. We've got, I think, 13. And it's interesting. We've got two different old fashions. They're just so popular here. One in our menu, old fashioned is with Eagle Rare, which is a 10-year-old age bourbon, right? So it's crazy how much of those we sell. We got a couple of margaritas. And one of the aspects I like about different cocktails is that I think you can split. And if you offer one espresso or cold brew martini and they're so popular, you might as well just go ahead and offer two. And it gives somebody another alternative to say, this one has Kahlua in it, this one has Bailey's in it, this one is a little bit different. Maybe this one's made out of tequila or rum. I mean, what better goes with coffee than rum? So if you have such a very popular cocktail, you could split it. Instead of just having one of those on the menu, have two of those. You're not too far away from the original cocktail. You're not going crazy with, 10 different ingredients, but you're giving that customer a different look at something. My wife likes going to places and she always looks at the cocktail menu. But majority of people that come in here, like you said, you're not going to convince someone not to order a vodka soda. They're just going to do it.
Mhm.
It's whatever they're low carb or they think it doesn't give them a hangover, whatever it is. You're not changing their mind. You're not changing my mind when I go to Jersey Mike's. I'm getting the number 6. Going to get chicken salad. You can throw that on the menu all you want. I'm not buying chicken salad.
Mhm.
I think in my opinion, sometimes the Mick Ultras and the vodka sodas allow you the ability to flex, like you were saying, Chris, on the seasonal menus. And then therefore this is what we do is we give the crew that, let them flex their creative muscle and put something down that's a little fancier on the seasonal menu. So we're not all wrapped up in crazy inventory. Enjoy it. It's their riff. They own it and they actually try to sell it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Dave, to
Mhm.
your point, someone walks in the bar and says, what do you got? And they're like, well, I just, created this cranberry espresso martini.
Mhm.
Well, I'll have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that it's, now you're not the Cheesecake Factory and you're giving something back to your crew that wants to flex their muscle. I mean, how boring is it if you're just selling Jack and Coke all day long? So that might be the moderation that we're looking for.
I think that's smart. It's kinda like pasta. I like your idea of, hey, we take sort of the same thing and make multiples of the same thing with
Mhm.
slightly different versions.
Exactly.
It's pasta, like I can make pasta 100 different ways. It's pasta.
Yeah.
Spaghetti, macaroni, it's, somehow different, but yet it's exactly the same. So
That's right.
you can
I
just
know my wife, exactly. It's the same stuff, just a different tube,
yeah, it's just a
you
different
know?
yeah, and look, it's great for inventory. We do a lot of work on the inventory side. Chris, you'll like this. We have sophisticated not fairly sophisticated, we have sophisticated software on the inventory side, and our software allows us to, in real time, cost out cocktails as we're building the menu. We'll have to ask someone as we're pulling down their P mix, "What's in this?" And we put all the ingredients in and we put in the price and everything else and it'll kick out a number. And so very often you should make really great margin on your cocktails, right? You should make great margin on the spirits business and then a little less on the beer and potentially wine and that sort of thing, depending on what you're selling. But you should make really nice margins. And so often we will price out a cocktail that someone has on the menu that they're really excited about. And the cost will be 23, 25%. And they're like, "Holy cow, how's that possible? Well, how did you cost it?" And the only cost they'll look at maybe the main ingredient or maybe the main 2 ingredients, and that's the only thing that's really factored into the price is one example. Or they don't have factored in loss and some other things that factor into the pricing where you're like, "Hey, how come I'm not making the money I should be making here? Like, I've got this thing mapped and blueprinted where I should be doing 18% bar cost. Why am I doing 23? I can't find it. Nothing makes sense." And there's just a whole lot of gray area between the 18 and the 23. That includes all the things you're talking about, the cherries and everything else. It includes the loss. It includes the overpouring. It includes substitutions. It includes temporary deals. Like there's so much that goes into making money at the bar, and you really need to have your spirits program super dialed in. And we're talking menu. We're not, there's a whole interesting conversation to have about beer as well, like and wines. Like we're only talking spirit, but beer and wines. Like, do you do a beer deal? I've got people that still do $1 and $2 pints. And you may say, "Oh my God, how's that even possible? How can you make that happen?" Yet they do. And it works fantastic for some people at the right place in the right circumstance. And for other people would say, "Hell no, we're not doing anything remotely close to that." There isn't one right answer. It's really just about how do you execute the plan. And if you can make it happen and you can make that work for you, then that's awesome. So anyway, that's just a little bit more of throw a couple grenades out there at you, Chris.
Yeah, well, a couple things coming off that. One is, uh, uh, just to hammer this, the garnish piece, right? Because when you see that split between the 18 and the 23, percentage cost, right? You're shooting for 18, you get 23. A lot of times I'll see 2 reasons for that. The first one being forgot the garnishes and the costing,
Mhm.
and it's stupid stuff like a Luxardo cherry. Everyone wants Luxardo cherries. I think they cost now like 32 cents depending upon the size of jar you buy. So if you're running a 20% cost, that cherry has increased the price of your drink over $1.50. So that's a lot of upward pressure on the price that most people never capture, and then it hurts their margin. The second thing is, and this is like the stupid math mistake I'll see a lot of bars, right, they're still including tax in the price of their drinks. So they go, "This is, 7 and a quarter." And they do all their costing and it's all perfect and they're right, and it's, 7.20. So they call the drink 7 and a quarter. Well, if your sales tax rate is 6, 7, 8%, there's a 3, 4, 5, 6% variance of what you're trying to get and what you're actually getting. And it has nothing to do with the cocktail, nothing to do with the garnish, nothing to do with most of what we think about, but math and taxes.
Mhm. And a lot of people don't have good tools. Sometimes it's just a matter of a decent spreadsheet. You know how many I've got a cocktail calculator spreadsheet that I send out to clients and like, look, just fill in the boxes and it'll give you the answers. I see a lot of people that have pricing sensitivity. Hey, what you need to charge for that old fashioned pricing right now man, that's a tough conversation because hey, you want to do the Eagle Rare and you want to do it at 2-ounce pour, you want to do everything right, and you look at the numbers, and you want your bar program to do 18, but that means your liquor's probably doing a 12 or a 13 or something like that. You need to price that Eagle Rare Old Fashioned at 15, $16, potentially, right? Or more, depending on what your market is and what your different fixed costs might be. And I'll have clients go, people won't pay that. Well, then we shouldn't be putting Eagle Rare 10-year. I'm not saying you, Cliff, I'm using that just as a generality. Then we can't use that in the old fashioned. We're gonna have to default till we get to a number and a value that works for everyone involved, that works for our profit, that works for the guest experience, that works for the reputation of the venue. I'll see a lot of people go through that pricing calculator. The truth comes out of what they have to charge, and they're like, I can't do that. All right, well, you can't have it both ways. You're gonna have to make peace with 22% if you don't wanna charge, and I appreciate that too, by the way, like, it's not our job to tell people what they should be. We aspire to tell people on the inventory side of the businesses where they are and where do you wanna be, and then help them close the gap. But it isn't our job necessarily to say, "Here's what you need to do in this business," because there's too many ways. There's only about millions of solutions out there floating around.
Yeah, it's dynamic. And so what do you put on your menu based on the overall strategy of your buying power or your purchasing? So for instance, Eagle Rare is a Sazerac deal, and Eagle Rare allows us to acquire we've got some bourbons up there that are extremely rare. sell $200, an ounce, $100 an ounce. Had we not been selling as many Eagle Rares for, let's just say $13, we wouldn't be getting those up there. Now, am I smart enough to know whether or not that's making us money? No. Is it cool to be able to point off of my little dive bar and show about 7 or 8 different bourbons that, steakhouses would love to have? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Do we have people come in here and just sit here and order several ounces of each? Absolutely. So it's a little bit of a mystery to me. At what point do you take deals for certain benefits, and what point do you are idealistic and say, nope, I'm going to do all this with all sorts of distributors, um, and I'm going to be independent from that? I can tell you, in the past, free is not very cheap. In other words, free can be very expensive. So you have to study these deals and you have to work it. And you have to make sure you're getting the discounts. I mean, we've made mistakes where we've gone months thinking that we were getting these bottle deals and they weren't coming in on the inventory.
Mm.
So this deal that we made never got to our bottom line. So the menu, to me, the technical side of the menu, or maybe the artistic side of it, is structuring the menu to where you've got a larger overall strategy with a distributor or a rep in order to have a higher goal. So again, the vodka sodas, a certain vodka may enable you to get a certain bottle allocation of a certain rare cocktail. I wish I had a bottle of it right now, but the Eagle Rare, Sazerac gave us a barrel of Eagle Rare. So we had 230, bottles of Eagle Rare with our little label on it. It said Truck and Tap. We had that with 1792. We had Corazon Bottle Pick. And most recently, our Eagle Rare barrel went to Corazon, and there's been some tequila resting in it for over 2 years. And we just got a beautiful bottle of Corazon rested tequila with a Truck and Tap label on it. So to me, that's more than an intangible. And now we got something to talk about. So I kind of want to know a little bit about structuring deals a little better in my world. I know my guys know. Maybe I need to ask them. But there's that aspect. Chris, I wouldn't mind hearing your opinion since you're writing the book on menus. How does that come
Yeah,
out?
so there's a couple different ways that I look at this. One is when we're talking about the math behind things. If you're have a deal, like it sounds like the deal you have with Sazerac on Eagle Rare, where it's just a flat deal, it's going to exist as long as it exists, but it's not a short-term thing, right? This is kind of going into perpetuity. Then yeah, you price based on that deal. If you have one of these short-term deals, like I basically tell people, unless you're using somebody like Barmetrics who's going to come in, take all your invoices and do all the work for you,
Yep.
price off of the frontline price. Assume no deals, and then every time you get a deal, it just pads your margin, and you're a happy camper. Because while you can pay Dave, and he'll come in and do all this work for you, and you know exactly what it is. Most people, if you own a little bar, you're never going to do that math. So just ignore it and use it as a benefit. So that would be one point. Another thing is, I noticed you mentioned free goods, and free goods not necessarily being free, which is very true because they just kind of pile up and stay there. One thing I always loved to do, and it worked hideously well, was to do a beer and a shot combo. So whatever free good I had that they had just given me that I didn't want, find a beer that pairs with it, charge a couple bucks more than the beer, call it a special, and I've just made a killer margin because, right, my only cost is the beer and I'm charging more than I normally do. So that would be a thing. But, I think with all of this, when you start stacking deals and you start getting into the allocated liquors and all and everything, it's really hard to say, here's just the blanket formula because all of that changes so many different pieces, right? And Cliff, it's like in your case, you're getting all this allocated whiskey. You have people coming in for that allocated whiskey. You make, I'm assuming, darn good margins on that allocated whiskey. So, if I have an Eagle Rare deal and let's say it costs me to sell Eagle Rare where I want, do the deal and everything, it costs me $1,000 a week more than something else. Well, if it gets me this allocated whiskey and I sell, I don't know, a couple grand worth of that in a week, I've probably, if not on contribution margin, on percentage made up that money. On contribution dollars, I have absolutely made up that money. And that's where the math always gets complicated is that when you get into the higher end items, you can't always look at it as a percentage. You have to look at it as a dollar value, right? Because if I even a 50% cost on a $100 pour, well, I made 50 bucks. It takes a whole heck of a lot of vodka sodas to make 50 bucks.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's an expression you can't spend a percent. So there's something to be said for that. Sure.
It's all good stuff. I was working with a, we did some work with, we'll get out of the restaurant business for a second. We were asked to do inventory for a liquor store, which that's a real treat. And if you want to see the definition of overstock, walk into the back room of a liquor store. It's unimaginable. And you know who loves to overstock is the suppliers. Like that is absolutely true about your inventory is yeah, there's a million different solutions. That's correct. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat. There's pasta and all that. But for the most part, fairly categorically, you can say overstock is bad for the most part. And then what you can say is if you're overstocked and you have a really great strategic reason to be overstocked, like you can tell a story, Cliff, you say, hey, I'm paying to be able to tell a story. I'm paying for a degree of exclusivity. I'm paying for a degree of prestige. And I know that I don't need to do that, but I want to. It's a great position. I want to have a barrel, right, with Dave on it. Yeah, that's really awesome. But what most people do is you go into the back rooms and play real time. Walmart has become a legendary business not simply, but primarily because of real time inventory. Like in a perfect world, you run out of stuff the day the replenishment comes in. That's perfect inventory management. Most places we work with have 8 to 9 weeks of backstock. And they'll say, oh, we don't care. We got a deal. We don't care this. We don't care that. But then rewind to like COVID. How much did you not care when you had $55,000 of inventory and backstock that could have been in your bank account? My point, Chris, and you're pretty sharp with the numbers, and I respect that. I'm not as sharp with it. I need something to tell me what the numbers are so I can do the translation. But what's absolutely true is people don't value like they should relative to inventory cash flow. Businesses typically don't go out of business on revenue or percentages. They go out of business on cash flow, right? I can basically run a business in the red if I can keep the cash moving. But when the cash stops moving, I'm in big trouble. How do you keep cash moving? Don't buy massive amounts of inventory thinking that you're going to save 5%. So that's a really good deal for me. Whilst you have an extra $20,000 sitting in your back room that your supplier has run to the bank with, and they understand cash flow. Who wins on big deals? The supplier does. They want that cash. They're trying to convert inventory into cash as fast as humanly possible. Bars are doing the exact same thing. You want to be able to convert inventory to cash as fast as possible and keep the flow moving. From there, we have the conversation about, do you want to win on the top end? Business is a constant fight between revenue and profit, every business. And the greatest businesses have both, right? But most businesses are winning on one or the other. And it's a push-pull proposition. And on the profit side, you want to keep that cash flow moving because really, inventory really doesn't contribute that much to the top line so much as a contribution piece, but it sure contributes to the bottom line on the profit side. Anyway, I went on a bit of a rant. I apologize.
Dave, let me ask you this. When you are helping people with their inventory, what is your target days in inventory?
As low as I can get it. As low. So look, in a perfect world, that's a tricky question. Again, it's kind of like saying what should be on your menu.
Right.
And my default answer is as low as I can get it. Like I say, in a perfect world, 7 days. Like you would turn your inventory every time you place an order. That's perfection. Perfection's unrealistic. I'd like to see people, because you do have to have some safety stock. We typically like 20, 30% on safety stock, 20 more ideal, 30 more realistic, which puts people somewhere 3-4 weeks is what, if someone can be from a stock on hand perspective at about 3 or 4 weeks, that tends to be, we can make money there. So if we have reasonable revenue and proper cost controls and our stock on hand is around a 3 or 4 week, then we like that. Inventory turns is another conversation, but that's item specific, Chris. I don't know that anyone would even know. I don't know that I know a single bar owner that can tell you what their overall inventory turn number is for the entire suite, the entire offering. But yeah, if your stock on hand is within 3 or 4 weeks or better, we've taken places from having, we haven't I know I should tell you stories, but they're real. We had someone that had 55,000 of stock on hand, and their cost was incredible when we came in, and a lot of people think that we just go on the barometric side. I do a lot of stuff, but on the barometric side, they think we just go after loss, like theft and overpour. That's not necessarily the case. The easiest win that you can find in your business is reducing overstock. Stop buying so much. And most people, man, I could go on. This might be a 100-hour podcast. Most people are buying too much because of a fear of running out.
Yeah.
Right. So now let's frame this real quick. Like, let's tie this up like this conversation. So I have this massive offering. Most bars have a way bigger offering than what their guests require of them. Right. So I could probably look at Cliff's bar and nothing in the picture did I show up to drink. I don't even know what half those things are. Right. But he's got them and that's cool. Right. Cool stuff. So what does that mean? Well, if Cliff runs out of that rum, substitute me into a comparable or better rum, and then tell me about that rum and show me how, hey, I just got a better deal. I ran out of this, but I upgraded you to that, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's even better, same price. And you may say, oh my God, man, I'm not taking that hit. That's actually a cheaper hit than having 2 or 3 extra cases of stuff you don't need. Like, it's to some degree is relative, but run lean, keep the inventory moving. One of the benefits of owning a bar and restaurant is our inventory shows up quick. Like, you can get 2 deliveries a week from the same supplier. Don't spend your money to store stuff in back stock and on shelves, and don't be afraid of running out. You're in the business of, like, we have this huge offer behind us. Don't be so, I'm not saying aspire to run out, but so many people are afraid to run out. So what they do is they don't right size, they oversize their stock, and they don't keep up with their pars. They're ordering the same amount of, let's say, Goldschlager that they did 10 years ago, and it doesn't move. So why do we have we've had 2 extra cases of Goldschlager in the back for 3 years with no end in sight, which means I've got about a decade's worth of Goldschlager on hand. I'd rather it be in the bank. Again,
Yeah. To tie it up, though, to really tie it up is
Yeah,
you got, if we're talking about menus here, you got to stick it on the menu. So if you've
Right.
got an overstock
Yeah.
of Goldschlager, then, have a Goldschlager event or something, but move it. And then the only way you're going to move it is helping it out on the menu. I mean, put it on the menu, have a Goldschlager cocktail, have a Goldschlager, throw it in a frozen drink. I mean, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
We have a event coming up. Can't remember what it was. I think it's a New Orleans type of event. But yeah, we've we got some things left over from last New Orleans event. So yeah, we're throwing that stuff on the menu to get
Yeah.
rid of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes overstock is good. We had overstock of chartreuse, well, lo and behold,
Yeah.
there's a chartreuse shortage out there, so yeah, not every overstock is bad. And sometimes it's comforting to know that, you've got a case of something downstairs. I hear what you're saying, Dave, 7 days, 14 days. Don't be afraid of running out. But, sometimes when we do run out of a spirit, kind of throws a wrench into some things. So yeah, it's definitely, you don't want the delivery man here every day, but you certainly don't want him popping in every month either. So, again, it's that moderation of what works for you. But yeah, you know our bar, we probably have too much of a lot of things downstairs, but that also becomes, the overzealous general manager buying things. And, at what point do you have a lasso on some of your crew that's buying? We have 5 locations, but we don't have a specific bar, manager. Every store does their own buying. So you have to monitor that. But I think with getting, again, circling it back to the menus is, you got to know what you're overstock on. And to your point, if you want to give away a shot, maybe you give away the Goldschlager shot, that you're trying to move it. So the menu can do many things within your inventory issues or your customer, not issues, but, to serve your customers and to serve the overall aesthetic of the bar.
Yeah, and let me share a story with you. So when I had my bar, it was, neighborhood divey bar. We basically sold your basic liquor. Everything was a blank and blank. And we moved a crap ton of Captain Morgan, right? Like you would expect out of a place like that. And our order pattern was order on Monday, deliveries on Tuesday.
Right.
And we ran a really tight inventory. My goal was always to be around, on something that we're selling a lot of, no more than 14 days. And with the captain, there was a Friday night and we had been busy. And my bartender or my bar back grabs me towards the end of the night and goes, "Hey, do we have any more captain?" I went, "What do you mean, do we have more captain? I know how much captain I had. I know that's a 2 week supply. What the heck is going on?"
Yeah.
Well, it turns out we had sold it for whatever reason, we had a run on Captain, plus there was some overpour because I did an actual versus theoretical, like, this quick in the office after I realized I was out of Captain and realized they were off by 3 bottles, and then I think that's according to my staff, that's the most fearful they've ever been that I was about to fire them all, which I didn't, I just yelled and left.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I'm sitting there now and I got Saturday, I got Sunday, I got Monday. I'm a neighborhood bar. I have no Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan is one of my top sellers.
Yeah. Right.
And I went, "Oh shit, I'm just screwed."
Yeah.
You know what actually happened?
You went to the
Jack
liquor
shit.
store and bought Captain Morgan.
No, no, I didn't do that. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
People ordered Captain. We said, we're out. You want Sailor? Yeah, sure, great. Or do you want Sailor? Nah, I'll do Bacardi. No problems at all.
Yeah.
Between Gosling and Bacardi and Sailor, no one complained. There was no issue. I thought I was about to get yelled at by everybody, and really no one cared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good story.
It's
Yeah.
true. We had a client he's a friend too in Maryland, and their seasonal place, to your guys' point, Cliff, I think to your point, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's both of you guys. And they're like on the beach. And so in the winter months, business just dies. And we were looking at their financials, and then we looked at the inventory and we looked at his back stock and said, "Hey, you know what? You basically, if you can make creative use of your back stock, I don't think you have to buy anything for 2 months. Anything. Like maybe some beer, but like in terms of spirits, can you pull that off?" And in fact, we did, or I should say he did. So imagine having so much backstock that you were able to essentially fund your bar business for 2 months, and just had to get really creative,
Right.
which they're super talented though, like super talented cocktail folks, really smart. And they were able to come up with the stuff that was sitting was great stuff, just not usual. And like, on the menu, what the hell is this? Well, that's stuff that the mixologists go bonkers for, so let's make some really dope cocktails, and it worked like a charm. So it can be true. A lot of people who are there's certain commonalities in struggle. Backstock's one of them. Not pricing right is another one. Not connecting your offer to your guest is another one. And you get a lot of people who are doing all three of those things. If you can sort of just re-leverage that stuff and get it all synergized where it's working together. What are my customers like? What's my backstock? How do I make that offer? How do I price that correctly? You can both turn things around quickly and you can lose your ass in a hurry by getting those sorts of things right and wrong. And that was a really great story. And then they've learned the value of inventory control and managing turns, and it also made them a little more fearless. Chris, to your point, like, hey, we can offer crazy things and we can run out of things, and it's all in how we handle it. Like, people are at a bar; they're not there to beat your ass over Captain Morgan. They're there to have a good time. Show them a good time. Upgrade them to a better rum. We don't aspire to run out of Captain Morgan. We're also not going to shit the bed when it happens. Like, it's going to be okay. We deal with way worse stuff than running out of Captain Morgan. Chris, to your point, like, it was all right, man. People aren't going to kill you. They love the local bar. They're not there to beat you up. Maybe give you some crap. Like, I reserve the right to give you a hard time because it's fun. But in the end, I don't care, you know?
Trust me, I got a lot of crap on that one. No one actually complained. Didn't cost me any money, but it did cost me a little bit of ego.
Yeah. Right. 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 So, what what point do you actually state the liquor or the brand in a cocktail, or do you try to hold that hostage for a deal with the rep or the distributor?
Is that to Chris, or that looks like a Chris question?
As for anybody, I mean, I think, I think I know the answer, but it's interesting. You will see on menus people spelling it out,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see on menus people not spelling it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like when they don't spell it out, they're trying to, it's the head fake. You think you're ordering a fancy drink, but you got the lowest margin spirits that you may not even have real agave tequila. You may have the worst triple sec. So yeah, you get a $6 margarita. What do you expect? Margarita, $6.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take whatever.
Or you have, yeah, top shelf margarita, you know,
Yeah. What's top shelf?
Herradura restaurant,
Bacardi.
Contro, and yeah, so I kind of I read between the lines when I look at a cocktail menu these days. So in today's day and age too, when every dollar means a lot, I think people are looking for quality. So I think the menu needs to show, hey, here's a specific, even, I mean, you can't get a hamburger these days without seeing whether it's Black Angus or whether it's 80/20 chuck or,
Hmm.
it's no longer just hamburger.
When I came to your place a couple weeks ago and I saw that it was Eagle Rare and the old fashioned, I went right for the old fashioned. No
Yeah. Oh
hesitation,
yeah.
right? So, like, for me, I was like, "Oh, hell yeah. Cliff's Rockin' Eagle Rare and the
Yeah.
old fashioned, let's go." Like, I was in for that. I think you're right. I'm dubious when people say top shelf margarita, reposado tequila. Well, that's cute. Like, which and I like the 3 of us and probably anyone listening to this would ask, but I think the
Yeah.
general public, I'm not sure how many people in the general public would say, which reposado are you putting in there? And do they actually know the difference between this brand, that brand, and the other? I'm not sure. Like, I don't know that I'm smart enough to answer that. Like, we'd have to get a bunch of restaurateurs on and say, "What do you do?" And say, "Yeah, man, we do it. No one ever asks, and we just put well in that thing."
Well, there's a moderation between, we're talking about before pricing a cocktail. If a cocktail comes in at, because some of the kids will come in and say, "Hey, look, this is a good seasonal cocktail." And we're like, "Yeah, it's $20. Someone's going to buy that." So they'll go and they'll put a pencil to it, just like everybody else does in business. You got to value engineer. And once you value engineer, you're like, okay, well, maybe I can't use this certain triple sec. I've got to use this lower version of it. But hey, I taste tested it and it's not that bad. So I
Mhm,
think there's a moderation between, some really, well spirits that might have crazy cost of goods, but it's worthy of being able to put on a menu. So let's don't forget to taste test the products that
mhm,
you're putting in the cocktails, and I guarantee those high level cocktail bars know exactly what triple sec tastes good, what might be a little bitter, what might be a little sweet, what might be a little acidic or citrusy. But again, I keep using the word moderation. You've got to know the quality. It has to be there, but does it have to be a name brand? And do you put the name in the menu or do you hold the name hostage for a good deal from one of your favorite reps? So I think the menu can be part of that strategy of being able to lower your cost of goods sold through certain deals. And I don't, I think we had to learn that the hard way, experimenting with different suppliers and different reps. And I think we've got a good partnership right now with Sazerac.
Yeah. So the question I always like, I look at this a couple different ways, but one of the questions I always like to look at is what are your customers calling for? Right? If your customers are calling for high end bourbons, if you're using Evan Williams, you probably shouldn't say it. But if your customers are calling for Evan Williams because you have something worse in the well, okay, now you should say it,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of this is level based. And if you're like a neighborhood bar, just kind of style, and you thrown in Eagle Rare, okay, yeah, of course, say Eagle Rare. The other piece here is not, and this is going to sound bad, but not every liquor in the cocktail has to be at the same level, right? I could use a really high end rum or vodka or whiskey in the cocktail, and then everything else could be like the Kuipers. And so then you say, "Hey, we're using this vodka or this rum," and then just triple sec.
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, getting to your point, I mean, DeKuyper, I've tasted a lot of different DeKuypers. Some of them are actually pretty good. It's not so the the taste test to me is what's important. Understand what things taste like because then you can get away, just by buying the most expensive triple sec, it may not work well with that one cocktail. But the value engineering side of the menu is important, as is the deal side. There's so many dynamics in the menu
Well,
that
and also, what do your customers expect, and what can they taste?
What
And
can
I
they
say, what
taste?
can they
Yeah.
taste? So let me. I was working at a country club, and the vodka in the well at the country club was Kamchatka. So you got a bunch of rich guys drinking Kamchatka, and every once in a while they would complain about the fact it was Kamchatka.
right.
And every once in a while, they'd get a blind taste test of vodka. They couldn't pick out the Kamchatka from the Stoli, from the Grey Goose, from the Absolute.
No.
So if I mean, how refined your customers' palates are, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if they don't have refined palates,
Yeah.
they're not even gonna be able to tell the difference.
Chris, even more than that, even if you have a refined palate, most people can't tell the difference. I was working with one of the biggest brands in the world, right? On the bourbon trail. So I had a gig last year for about 12 months on the bourbon trail and had a bunch of these cool conversations. We were talking about we were talking about similar, and I said, "Look, if I lined up all your competitors, if I just lined up 10 bourbons right here in a row and everyone just partook, and anyone who thinks they could tell me 2 of them, no one even raised their hand, so, it'd be a wipeout. Like, I couldn't tell you. If I put 10 bourbons in front of you, do you think you could tell me which is which? And the answer is mostly no. I think to some extent you're buying like, when I went into Cliff's place and they had Eagle Rare, that's just cool, and I was willing to spend the money for sort of the prestige and the experience of having an Eagle Rare Old Fashioned, but truth is, you know, if they put, old Knickerbocker in there, would I be able to tell the difference in a really well-crafted cocktail? Man, probably not. Can you tell which tequila's in a margarita? I don't think so. Like, not really, can you? No. Can you tell me one Blanco from another? No. You're sort of buying the experience, which was the conversation I had with those groups, that it really does go back to the product is part of an experience that you're giving to people, and if to Cliff's point, which is exactly right, like, if that thing tastes good, I don't give a shit what's in it, right? It could be made with dog piss. Does it taste great? I'll have another. Like, let's just keep bringing and it's cheaper? Great. I'm no problem with that. So what experience are you delivering to people? Most people can't tell. When I can tell a little bit is if I'm only drinking a bourbon or only drinking a
Mhm.
tequila, like I happen to love 4 lays of tequila. I think it's sweat from the gods. Like, it's just delightful. I can tell. Like, I can throw that back. There can be a big gap in tequila if you're just doing sipping tequila, but as soon as you start mixing, I think it gets really interesting as to whether you really believe it. We have a client that was serving, I can't tell that story. That was a beer story. What they were selling and what they were serving were 2 different things, let's say, okay? Weren't the same product. Here's the great part of this story. So they were selling this product for so long that when they switched to the product that they were actually selling, so what was on tap was actually on tap, people complained that it sucked because they had been used to what was on tap. You tracking?
Yeah.
So they had to go back to what it wasn't to make people happy that they were drinking what they thought it was. Nuts. So probably out of school. No names, right? Protect the innocent. So anyway, I don't think people know on a lot of the stuff. You're selling a degree of prestige when it comes to what you're putting products in and things that people want to feel good about. I'm going to pay $14 for that because you're putting a certain product in there and I want to consume that product. But could I tell the difference? Man, chances are really low. Really, really low. You think you could pick out bourbons, Chris? If I lined up
Heck
10
no.
in front of you, you wouldn't know what they are, right?
Not a chance in the world.
Yeah, that's what
And
I think.
and, you know, I think that when it comes to being able to guess booze from drinking it, probably the one that you could do is wine. It's easier to pick out different wine varietals and stuff, but unless you're drinking wine all day, every day, and have a fat pocketbook to be able to taste everything, good luck.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Yeah, I think your drinking experiences. Cliff, what do you think? Could you pick out stuff?
Not at all.
Yeah, I think those are good. I mean, the liquor industry does a great job of selling brands, beliefs. Look, Fireball was a dead brand, wasn't it? Dr.
Yeah,
McGillicuddy's. That's a great example. I know we're going way off menu, but Dr. McGillicuddy's Fireball was dead. And it was just rebranded with a dragon and different, it sort of just presented it different to the market and it exploded and continues to explode. It's the same stuff it's always been,
yeah.
right?
And think about how many liquors you see that with, where they change some branding or they tweak a little something and then they're hot again. And even, even within liquor, what people want seems to be relatively cyclical, right? Sometimes rum's in, sometimes whiskey's in, sometimes vodka's in. And when you hit one of those switches
Mhm.
and you're moving liquors, it's like everybody rediscovers all this stuff, and you're like, "Yeah, that's not really new. The company's about 200 years old, but yeah, good job rediscovering it, man."
Mhm. Look, I'm not beyond buying like, for my personal stash, I'm not beyond buying a product just because the bottle's cool. Hey, I want that bottle on my bar. Like, that's a dope bottle. That bottle's going on my bar, and you know what? I can't tell the damn difference. If I don't like it, I'll just mix it into something and it just becomes alcohol. It's not really the so, I mean, I'm not beyond buying stuff because the bottle's cool, and that's just me buying the marketing. It has nothing to do with the product inside, which the spirits industry is fascinating in that regard. And look, beer, keep going to spirits, but beer's the same way. Like I said, if I lined up 10 light beers in front of you and said which is which, I don't think even your best alcoholics can pick that out. I'd bet everything I own that no one's going 10 for 10 on the light beer mix, but you're buying into a brand essentially. I'm a Coors Light guy. I'm a Miller Lite guy. I'm a Bud Light guy. Why is that? I don't know. It's what my dad drank, or it's what I've always drank, but you don't really know.
Thing I will say about the beer drinkers, when you do have those people though that drink like, because I had a bunch of them that are like, I drink 2 buckets of Bud Light every day. If you give them something that's not Bud Light, they couldn't tell you 10 different beers, but if you gave them something that's not Bud Light, they know.
They know it's
Yes.
not Bud Light.
Right. Yeah.
That may be. That may be. Now, in the case I gave you before, they did not,
Right.
but they had gotten used to something and they knew what they had gotten used to had changed,
Mhm.
but they didn't know it wasn't Bud Light.
One thing I feel like people forget about menus, right? A lot of folks, they'll spend all this time coming up with these perfect cocktails. They'll spend all this time designing their menu. They'll spend all this time working on their pricing. They'll get that part absolutely correct. And then they won't train their team properly on it, and none of it matters.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's one of the biggest disconnects, especially in kind of your neighborhood style bars,
Yeah.
because they're not totally cocktail focused. And so you put all this time and effort and energy into a cocktail menu, and then you just waste it.
Yeah.
And it's your cost isn't under control. Your customers aren't getting a good experience. Like you'd be better off not doing it at that point if you cannot train on that menu.
Now we had a cocktail menu a couple of years ago when I went to each one of our bars, 4 of them, and every drink tasted different, and only one guy got it right. And so that was definitely a topic of discussion of trying to get consistency following the protocol to make a proper cocktail. And yeah, absolutely. So training has to be part of it, and also training on the spirits too. The actual
Mhm.
okay, to our point, what is the brand? What is that spirit? Where are they from? What does it taste like? What's it made out of? What's the proof? All that helps. So yeah, I think the crew needs to know all the ingredients. It's just like a chef. They need to know what's going on in there.
Bartenders like to riff. I think they get bored easy, and if you don't teach them, like in
It's
Cliff's
not their
case.
job to riff, though. That's if they're ordering a cocktail that's on the menu, that's not the riff.
I know,
The
but they
riff
like to.
is yeah. Oh no, I know. We actually have one of our is a we actually say this is a riff.
Yeah. But my point is you have to teach them why it matters, to
Mhm.
Chris's point, to both you guys, like, "Hey, sometimes it's not enough. You'd like it to be enough to say, 'Here's how you make this cocktail, make it.' But then there's another conversation in training, and here's why that matters, because we're making this across 4 venues, because we make this across multiple shifts, because our regulars come in at different times and different days, and we want them to have the same experience every time." And I think to your point, Chris, there's levels of training. Like you can train someone to make the cocktail. That's one thing you can do. Now, whether they do that or not, that's still, who knows? If they know why, like if there's no why behind it, Chris taught me how to do this, true enough. But here's how I decided to do it because my customers like it better, because I think it tastes better this way, because whatever reason. And it just doesn't seem like that. Is it really that big of a deal that I make my this with that instead of the other? Does that really matter? And the answer is yes, it does really matter. Let me explain to you
Here's flip
why.
that around is just because, the higher up, let's just say it's the bar manager decides a recipe goes on a menu, doesn't mean everybody likes it. So
That's true too.
you look
Yeah.
at Walt Disney World when they're opening up their barbecue restaurant in Epcot, I mean, they're sitting down 20 different high-level people tasting all the ingredients, tasting all of the different riffs on barbecue that's throughout this United States, and they're coming up with one. We'll just say, "Hey, here's the margarita." We'll shove it on the menu, and to your point, the bartender could be like, "Yeah, something's not right here."
Mm,
So then you got to elevate it back up to the menu and say, we need to change this. So just because it's on the menu, Chris, doesn't mean it's the best possible riff of
mm,
the margarita.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the menu is very complicated to me. It's very dynamic. There's a lot going on, and it's not just about price. It's not just about cost of goods. It's not just about the position. It's not just about if there's 8 menu items, is there 13. Does the shit taste good, right? Is your customer going to like that margarita? Because I'll tell you, a lot of times I've seen the margarita go back to our bar, and someone wants some more sugar in it. You know,
Mhm.
this margarita's not sweet enough. Well, my guy loves a margarita that's just made with a little agave, a lot of lime, and tequila. But that woman coming in, she wants a lot of triple sec. And guess what? There's no triple sec in the margarita we just served her.
Mhm.
So, know who your customer is and be willing to, line up 10 people to taste that one variety of that cocktail to see if it actually is going to fly. So there's a lot going on in that little menu there.
There's a lot.
Well, and Cliff, I want to put together something you just said with something you said way early on in this conversation. You were just talking about how oftentimes if we put a margarita on a cocktail menu, it's not the best margarita. And I would argue it's always true that it's not the best margarita because if it was the best margarita, things like cost and efficiency of making the cocktail and all of that wouldn't be factored in, right? We have to take what we want to serve almost always and par it down based upon what ingredients we have, how our stations are set up, how our bartenders are trained, all of that put together. But real early on in the conversation, you had made a mention that you get input from your team on what cocktails you should do. So to me, if you can take, say, your bartenders, let them come up with something, walk them through the process. It makes that why that Dave was just talking about so self-explanatory, right? Because they go, oh, we want to do this. And you go, cool, let's make it. Oh, this is an amazing margarita. Okay, here's how we do the math. And do you think our customers will buy this for $27.95? Well, no. Okay, so then what do you want to do to make this so that your customers will actually buy this awesome margarita you just came up with? And so if you combine the fact that what you're going to end up with is never what you really want or would have in an ideal world at your own house and bringing your team in to work on it, they get it better, right? And they understand that why, and then they're less likely to make some of these stupid substitutions that kill your cost because they know that, hey, there's a reason why we didn't say that.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Definitely think your frontline bartenders need to be part of that process for sure. And then you as the manager, the owner, you need to teach them the cost of goods sold aspect of it. And one thing, I don't know, Dave, if it's in your calculator or not, but the time it takes to make a
For
cocktail.
sure, for
That's very
sure.
important too. So it's
Yeah,
just not cost, the spirits, not the ice cube. If you're, uh, the condiments, but actually, is it going to take you 5 minutes to make that old fashioned, or is it going to take you, 30 seconds to make that Jack and Coke?
100%. And you know how many people, Cliff, include, labor costs in terms of the price of the cocktail? You know how many people do that? Maybe 1%. It's not
And
factored in.
it's not just labor costs, but yeah, I'm sorry, it's opportunity costs because
Opportunity
you could
cost,
be
right, yeah,
making another Jack and Coke
right.
in the next 3 minutes.
That's
Yeah. So
exactly
I mean,
right.
once you're turning and burning, at 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, these bartenders that's all they're doing are making cocktails. That's all
Mhm.
they're doing. So every minute, every 2 minutes is another $15 down the drain.
Yeah, that's why good prep
So
really matters too on some of that stuff,
well, when we
especially.
have bar crawls, the cities will do bar crawls here. I tell them all the time, I was like, no complicated. If someone orders an old fashioned during a bar crawl, just say no. Sorry, we're
Yeah,
not doing old fashions right now.
yeah.
Yeah,
Gin fizz, please.
there's our drink.
Look, and even ice. I mean, nowadays, depending where you go, ice, and the quality of the ice and the investment that you make in ice and all that stuff. Like I was telling you guys about Gary's place. If you go to Gary's place early in Charlotte, the blocks, they'll have the blocks of clear ice right out on the bar, and they're I don't know, sawing away, making these perfect cubes and lining everything up and just stacking perfect cubes of ice, which is just kind of cool to watch, like, that's their thing, like, it's just super dope, like, whatever you get there is
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
unimaginable, it's gonna
that's the
be as good
experience.
as it could be. Yeah,
Right.
that's the yeah, man, and they do the tomahawk ribeyes or tomahawk steaks, open flame grill too, like, you sit there and just look at that place, yes, that's great, great place. I love that place. There, Cure, New Orleans, also good. Cafe La Trova, Miami, those are high on my list. Truck and Tap, Atlanta, high on my list. Best places to go.
That's going to wrap us up for today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation on Party of Six. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a review so that you can catch this panel every month when we bring you top voices in the industry talking about the problems that everyone faces and breaking it down in a great conversation where you can learn different techniques and different ways of solving the problems that you have. Have a great day, and we will talk again soon.